Si estás, digo no para bailar. Si me invitan los demás, yo me muevo para que me veas. Si estás me conecto, si no estás me desconecto. Si estás me conecto, si no estás me desconecto. Oh.
Hola clase, hoy vamos a discutir comparisons. La banda salva pantallas, which means screensavers, y la canción Me Conecto. Me gusta mucho, me gusta mucha la canción, pero para comenzar vamos a practicar vocabulario. So, ¿cómo se dice lamp? La lámpara. Wall hanging, los cuadros. Wall, la pared. Estamos en la casa. ¿Cómo se dice chimney? Correcto, la chimenea. Muy bien. ¿Cómo se dice bedroom? El dormitorio. Fantástico. ¿Cómo se dice living room? El salón. Muy bien. ¿Cómo se dice bathroom? El baño. Fantástico. ¿Y kitchen? ¿Cómo se dice? La cocina. Muy bien. Vamos a practicar los verbos reflexivos. Just since we worked on the other day, we're just going to do actually the definitions, not actual sentence of them. So these are the infinitive. So you remember an infinitive is a verb before it's conjugated. So it's in its original form. So ¿cómo se dice to shave? Afeitarse. Muy bien. ¿Cómo se dice to go to bed? Acostarse. ¿Cómo se dice to fall asleep? Dormirse. Muy bien. ¿Cómo se dice to wash your face? Lavarse la cara. To shower. Ducharse. Y to take off the clothes, take off your clothes. Desvestirse. You also can say quitarse la ropa. That would be popular and acceptable as well. Okay, continuando. So just to review, because I know this is another challenging topic to keep this fresh in your head, or maybe today you're going to hear it differently than you did the other day when you did this lesson, because direct objects can be a little bit tricky. So remember, when you're doing direct objects, Esteban juega al baloncesto. So Steven plays basketball. What is he playing? Basketball, right? So that is what we have to replace. The direct object, el baloncesto. So we have to make sure we make it agreed that it's masculine and singular. So in order to do that, we need to replace el baloncesto with lo. But what happens next is the lo that replaces this word, el baloncesto, now needs to go before the conjugated verb, right? So in your head, how would you say Steven plays it? Esteban lo juega, right? So here you have the direct object lo that replaces el baloncesto, and we put it in front of the conjugated verb. Okay, continuando. Diego está subiendo las botellas de plástica. So, what is he climbing? Las botellas, right? So we'd want to replace las botellas, right? This one's a little bit easier because it looks like the one that you're going to replace it with. Las, right? This one has two options. No matter what, you can always put it before the conjugated verb. But once you get more familiar with it, you can start playing around, and you can always put it at the end of an ing word, right? So Diego está subiendo las. Anything that ends in endo or ando, you can add los or las or any direct object onto the end of it. Or you can just stick with putting it before the first conjugated verb, and it'll never fail. Diego las está subiendo. Mi gato sigue al laser por la mañana, right? My cat is following the laser in the morning. So what is my cat following? Al laser, right? And we would replace that with lo because it's masculine singular. So I'm going to say mi gato lo siga, right? My cat is following it. Okay. Una más antes que comenzamos con comparisons. Marta está saltando los charcos después la lluvia. She is jumping the puddles after the rain. So what is she jumping? Los charcos, right? And those are puddles. And this is what we're going to replace. And again, this one looks a lot like the one that you would replace it with for the direct object. Los. Again, you have two options of where you're going to put this one. Maria está saltándolos. You can add it to any ando progressive, present progressive word, endo, or you can put it in front of the conjugated, right? So Marta está saltándolos, or Marta los está saltando. It all depends on what you're comfortable with, and as you evolve and get more comfortable with the language, things change. I would just always stick with what I knew until I got comfortable with that, and then I build on that foundation. And that continues throughout your journey with learning in Spanish. You're just constantly building your foundations like you are in English. Okay, so for today's lesson, we're doing comparisons. Speakers use comparisons to communicate that two or more persons or things have the same characteristics and they want to indicate which person or thing has more or less of the characteristic, or if they possess it equally. In Spanish, it is possible to compare adjectives, adverbs, nouns, and verbs. So, in order to express differences between people, things, and actions, you need to follow these patterns. When pointing out that a person or thing has more or less of a characteristic than another person or thing, or when explaining a difference in the way in which an action is carried out, use the formula más or menos plus adjective or adverb plus que. So, más plus adjective plus que, or menos plus adjective plus que. And so just to give you an idea, okay, so I just want to give you an idea of what this would translate to. So más alto que, taller than. So sometimes this is why Spanish is really tricky. We know que as a question word. We know it to mean what. But que, Q-U-E, without the accent mark on the E, means than, right? So it can be really tricky. In spoken Spanish, you have to tell by context. In written Spanish, it's a little bit easier so you can tell. But now you have to know in your brain that que can mean what or than. Más bajo que, shorter than. Más listo que, smarter than. Más pequeño que, smaller than. So now to do the other, right? So más was more than, menos is less than, right? So menos rápido que, you would have slower than. Menos complicado que, less complicated than. Menos inteligente que, less intelligent. So again, you guys just keep in mind, it takes a while for your brain to absorb a foreign language. So just keep in mind, que can mean what or than. So these are just some examples with sentences. Mi mochila es más pequeña que la mochila de Juan. So can you translate that? My backpack is smaller than Juan's backpack. Okay, mi coche es menos rápido que este coche. My car is slower than his car. Okay, so when stating that two actions are unequal in some way, use the formula verb plus más or menos que. So you also can use a verb in this, but when you do that, it goes verb plus the más, then the que. Okay, so el libro de historia cuesta más que el libro de español. So try to do this translation. I'll give you a hint. Cuesta means costs. So the history book costs more than the Spanish book, right? So you have verb, then the más or menos, and then the than, right? limpias menos que yo porque tu casa es más pequeña. You clean less than me because your house is smaller. So hopefully that gives you an idea, right? But it's verb plus más, menos plus que. Okay, when you wish to communicate that nouns are not equal, use the following formula. Más or menos plus noun plus que. So note that these formulas just shift, right? The más and menos goes in different places, so this is why it can be a little bit tricky. En aquella clase hay menos estudiantes que en mi clase. In that class, there are less students than in my class. La clase de inglés tiene más chicos que la otra clase. The English class has more boys than the other class. Okay, so note that when expressing comparisons that include a quantity or specific number, you should use más, menos, plus de. So, yes, this one's definitely different. You in English or in Spanish, you would never say, yo tengo más años que. That's not how they say that. Mi clase tiene más de 50 estudiantes. And I'll get to that example that I just talked about in a second. My class has more than 50 students. Hay menos de 10 chicas en mi clase. There are less than 10 girls in my class. So when expressing comparisons that include a quantity or specific number, you use más, menos, plus de. There are a few irregular ones, and this is what the one I was just talking about. Patterns when comparing the inequality of certain adjectives. For age, they use special comparative forms, mayor, menor que. The idea better than or worse than are expressed with words mejor que and peor que. So, mis abuelos son mayores que los abuelos de mi esposo. My grandparents are older than my husband's parents. So, mayores que, we wouldn't say mis abuelos tienen más años que, right? You wouldn't say it that way. So this is the regular one, mayor que, older than. And if you're younger, you say menor que. Tu hijo es menor que el hijo de Sara. Your son is younger than Sarah's son. Okay, so these ones are irregular. And for the examples for mejor que, which means the best, tú duermes mejor que nosotros porque tu cama es mejor que nuestra cama. You sleep better than we do because your bed is better than ours. You also can use these things like es el mejor estudiante en la clase. Martín es el mejor estudiante. Martin is the best student. Maria es el peor estudiante. Maria is the worst student. El barrio de ellos está peor que antes. The neighborhood is worse than before. So there's also comparisons of equality and la igualdad. So when expressing similarities between people, things, and action, this is what you want to do in order to express that a person or thing has as much of a characteristic as another person. So if I wanted to say, for example, my hair is as long as my sister's, mi pelo es tan largo como mi hermana. So again, we have this word como. You know como from como estás. Como te llamas. So notice even between those two sentences, como estás means how are you? Como te llamas means what's your name? Como changes depending on the context of when you're using it. So como can mean how, como can mean what, and como without an accent can mean as or like. So, yes, confusing, and it takes a while. So you can do that. So if you think you're crazy, you're not. It is just that Spanish has a lot of small things that make it feel like you're going crazy. So, mi pelo es tan largo. Mi hermana es tan inteligente como mi hermano. So what would this translation be? My sister is as smart as my brother. So you use the tan as smart as. So again, you have two words for as well. So yes, if you're feeling confused, that's pretty normal. When mentioning the equality of two actions, they're equal. Ella camina tanto como nosotros. She walks as much as us. Yo uso el balcón tanto como mis padres. So what do you think this translates to? I use the balcony as much as my parents. So these are just some examples for you to practice with. And on the right-hand side, so you guys can see, right? Más equals more, menos, less, mejor, better, peor, worse, mayor, older, menor, younger, más que, more than, menos que, less than, tan, como, as, right? Or alto, as tall as, just to give you an example, tanto como, as much or as many as. So, la familia Rodríguez tiene mucho dinero, pero la familia García tiene poco dinero. So, the Rodriguez family has a lot of money, but the Garcia family has a little bit of money. So how would we say the Rodriguez family has more money than the Garcia family? La familia Rodríguez es más rica que, richer than, la familia Garcia. So I guess I told you to say have more money than, so you could say have más dinero que. That would have been fine as well. That's using the noun in between. So note that that was a possibility. Okay. Número 2. En su casa, la familia Rodríguez tiene 3 dormitorios. Pero la familia García tiene 5 dormitorios. In their house, the Rodriguez family has 3 bedrooms. But in the Garcia family, they have 5 bedrooms. La familia Rodríguez tiene menos dormitorios que la familia García. Okay, una más. En la casa de la familia García hay 10 personas, pero en la familia Rodríguez hay 5 personas. So in the Garcia family, there are 10 people, and in the Rodriguez family, there are 5. La familia García es más grande que la familia Rodríguez. Los chicos García ayudan mucho en la casa, pero los chicos Rodríguez ayudan poco en la casa. Los chicos Rodríguez ayudan menos que los chicos García. So the Rodriguez boys help less than the Garcia boys. Raúl corre media hora cada día. Amelia corre media hora cada día. So Raúl runs half hour every day. Amelia runs half hour every day. So they run as much as each other, right? So Raúl corre tanto como Amelia. Raúl runs as much as Amelia. Número 6. Diego estudia 10 horas por semana. Paco estudia 10 horas por semana. Paco estudia tanto como Diego. Paco studies as much as Diego. Pienso que hay una más. Rogelio come mucho. Isabel come mucho. Rogelio come tanto como Isabel. Right? So Rogelio eats a lot. Isabel eats a lot. Rogelia eats as much as Isabel. So I think maybe... Oh, I guess there is one more. That's the last one. So Rosario tiene 25 años, Luis tiene 30, right? So Rosario has 25 and Luis is 30. Again, remember with age, you don't say más años que. Luis es mayor que Rosario, right? So Luis is older than Rosario. You also could say Rosario es menor que Luis. So here we are at the end of comparisons. We did a little bit of review today. Hopefully things are starting to stick. If they're not, just keep at it. I promise it will happen. It is a process, just like English is. You know, there's so many times in English that I still spell words wrong. And so, you know, it's the same when learning another language. You just keep on doing it until one day, you know, it comes out right. So just keep on keeping on, and I promise it'll get better. Que tenga buen día y nos vemos pronto. Ciao.